Illinois faces some big challenges. Today, you're about to hear a truly honest analysis of the problems we face. Equally important, you'll also hear an in-depth discussion of some practical solutions. This is your radio source for stories, the insight, and the answers you won't hear anywhere else, not in the media, and not coming from Springfield. You're listening to Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Opportunity Project. Now, here's your host, AM 560's Dan Proft.
Welcome to another edition of Illinois Rising. Dan Proft, co-host of Chicago's Morning Answer, weekdays 5 to 9 a.m. on AM 560 with Amy Jacobson. And joining me is Pat Hughes, co-founder of the Illinois Opportunity Project. On this installment, big news this week, developments in the the Chicago mayor's race, as you would expect. Maybe some unexpected developments. There was some rumors early in the week that Queen Sugar, Tony Preckwinkle, was going to get in. Of course, I reported that last week. But then was the power structure going to consolidate around Preckwinkle as the successor? And we learned late this week that no, that won't be the case because El Gallito,
which means the Gallito.
That's right. Before he departs to figure out why 1 million bottles of water were not delivered by the central government in Puerto Rico during the hurricane crisis.
They're in his garage, I think.
Before he does that, he wants to level up his choice to replace him in Congress, Chuy Garcia, to also replace him with respect to his mayoral ambitions. Here's what Gutierrez had to say this week.
I want Chuy to come back and finish that revolution that he started 4 years ago.
Revolution.
Yeah, the revolt was against Tiny Dancer. Chuy Garcia just happened to be the vehicle for it. I don't know that socialism is what the city was embracing then or now as much as it was a rejection of Rahm.
I think I'm a pretty convincing person. I think I'm going to be pretty adamant. And I assure you that Chuy's going to circulate petitions to put his name on the ballot, or I will.
Oh, all right. Okay. All right. Take it easy, little guy. For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by Charles Thomas, founder of the Chicago Drum, longtime political reporter for ABC7 and former WVON morning talk show host as well. Charles, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, man, it's good to hear your voice again.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you and in these harrowing times in which we live. So we got a lot of folks running for mayor. You've got Tony Preckwinkle. There's still some noise about Chicago Treasurer Kurt Summers, who's black as well, making a run. How do you handicap the race at this point?
Well, first of all, I mean, this makes me think that was it like this in the Soviet Union back in the Brezhnev era? I mean, when the party chairman, they call him the general secretary, I think at the time, made the call about who was going to do what, and I get that sense that Tony Preckwinkle is basically calling all the shots here. We're about to have the party make the decisions about who's going to be the mayor, who's going to be the county board president, who's going to be the congressman. I mean, this is amazing.
Yeah, but
when you think about how one-dimensional this is right now.
But here's
people have nothing to say about this.
Well, but here's the thing, Charles. The numbers suggest otherwise. The numbers suggest that the Politburo, if you will, may be a bit tone deaf. SEIU releases this poll this week. If I was them backing Preckwinkle, I wouldn't have released it. It shows her as anything other than the prohibitive favorite. She's at 25%, undecided 19%, Vallis 16%, McCarthy 13%, and on down. And that's before Chuy got into the race. This looks to me like a race to 25% to make the runoff, and then it's anybody's ball game.
Well, I think one thing to look at the Tony Preckwinkle involvement, she right now is working those 50 wards in the city, those committeemen. And if she can be assured that she doesn't have to go into a runoff, she'll do it. I think that's the key. If she has to go to a runoff, if the numbers suggest she's going to be in a runoff, she won't do it.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's what she's doing right now.
You don't think she's definitely in regardless?
I don't think she's definitely in right now. I think that once she starts leaning on people and she is assured that she doesn't have, if she's confident that she doesn't have to face a runoff, then she'll do it. I think there are some counter forces out there. It depends. I look at people like Michael Sachs, who was Rahm's money guy, right? Where is he in all this? I look at some of the other big money guys around the city, like this Fred Eichner of the what do they call it, the Applewood Foundation or whatever. I look at him. Some of the other big money people. What are they saying about this? Who do they want to back in this basically Democratic Party internal drama here?
Hey, Charles.
And I think right now it's Preckwinkle.
Hey, Charles, if what you're saying is true, right now Preckwinkle's at 25% from this one poll, and the field's at 75%, which suggests that there is the opportunity for a runoff. If she sees these numbers, and you're right, she'll then back out. Who then becomes the candidate of choice, number one? And number two, who do you think would be a good mayor out of the field that's been announced so far?
Well, I don't know. I don't know that any of them would necessarily be a good mayor, because all of them are beholden to the unions, and that's just the way it is in Chicago right now. That's the power group. I think what the issue would be in the campaign, I think the issue is going to be crime and violence. That's going to be the issue. That's going to be a narrative that an opponent could take against the Preckwinkle force. That could be the issue in the campaign.
With respect to the field, though, you wouldn't say Vallis is beholden to the public sector unions, wouldn't you? Isn't he the one that's not?
No, but I don't think he's. I think that's just John Cass writing about Vallis being.
Why don't you think Vallis has a chance?
Why do I think he doesn't have a chance? I just think he's kind of a dinosaur. Mm-hmm. I don't know that he really goes to the crime and violence issue that I think the entire city is very concerned about. I think a candidate like McCarthy could basically galvanize people in the southwest side, far southwest 19th Ward, northwest side. He could put together something on that issue. He could actually appeal to a smaller but significant element in the black community, senior citizens, who might be able to counter what the machine is bringing.
Speaking of dinosaurs, the rumor was that Mike Madigan and majority of the Latino caucus on the city council ready to fall in line with Chewy. Latino city council members, not so surprising. Madigan, sort of interesting if that's true, if you believe that's true, which I have good reason to believe it is. It seems to me that he's not only making a play for his district, which is Latino now. It's like Ed Burke's. This isn't, these aren't Irish communities anymore. And number two, future demographics, where the power is shifting, and he wants to get ahead of it. He clearly thinks that he can ameliorate allay the concerns or disagreements among the Black Caucus more easily than he can the Latino. What do you make of that?
I'm still. I haven't seen the citywide impact yet of the Latino vote. This could be a watershed kind of moment election. So far, they've always been 15-20% of the voters. A lot of people in the Latino community cannot vote because of citizenship issues. I haven't seen them really cross that line yet to the point where they're going to be that force. I still think the black vote is what counts. I think the fact that Rahm couldn't rehabilitate himself among black voters is the reason that he's not running for a third term. Mm-hmm. Bottom line. So this could be that watershed moment. I just don't have that confidence yet that could happen. I think if Chewy ran, I think there's a lot of buyer's remorse about Rahm and Chewy. I think a lot of people who voted for Rahm the last time in a one-on-one would vote for Chewy this time, even in the black community.
Charles, would Rahm's involvement behind any candidate help or hurt, or would it just depend on sort of like like drawing an inside straight in terms of drawing a certain percentage of Rahm's vote to get to the runoff? In other words, if Rahm backed Vallis or someone else, could it be helpful?
No. Rahm has problems beyond the Laquan McDonald situation. Rahm has problems with this whole tax, this overtax, taxes, fees, red light cameras, whatever. People are basically very PO'd about all that in other parts of the city other than the black community. Rahm has issues there. And if you have a candidate with even a moderate amount of funding who can basically tell that story, get that message out, they're going to turn on Rahm. Rahm had very, very serious problems because of how he approached solving the city's fiscal issues. All Rahm did, Rahm wanted to tax his way out of the city's fiscal problems. He talks about restoring this fiscal stability. Well, all he did was tax, fine, and assess fees
and borrow.
There was and borrow, and there was no real creativity there. And that's the great fear of a Preckwinkle administration, that she would do the same thing, because that's all she did. All she has done since having been won the county board presidency is tax, and more tax.
He is Charles Thomas, founder of the Chicago Drum, longtime Chicago political reporter for ABC7 and a former WVON morning talk show host. Charles, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, man, thank you for having me.
This is a democracy, and we will make democracy work.
El Gallito. This is how we do it in the Hillies 4th District. Just another Democrat on